Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, before get on to the actual subject of this video, I want to discuss a couple things really fast. First thing is local game group. Some guys I've known for a long time, and some other guys I've just met recently and played with. Little one shots here and there. Um, Started playing Hackmaster 4th edition with them. We just started creating characters. We haven't actually played yet. It's huge game, rule set wise. I told Tim Harper, I think I might have told Runeslinger, this is not the game that I would ever run. And it's certainly not like if we had a bunch of games, like let's vote for a game, like which one do we want to play? It's not the one I'd vote for, but it's interesting. And so, I'll give it a shot. They've got some nifty little rules here and there that, I would love to steal, but just giant monster. So sorry, Complex Games apologist. Anyhow, second thing is in the mail today came Circle of Hands. Look at that bad boy. And let me tell you one thing, the font in here is gigantic. You know what that tells me? Ron Edwards is an old man like myself and needs, probably needs to wear bifocals, which is cool because I like a big font because it's hard to read these darn things anymore. So anyhow, let me get on to what I was going to talk about. Jeffrey MacArthur posted a video about evil campaigns, and I think I first saw Lee Rimmer's Your Humble Game Master's video response. So both videos were good, so I'll probably link both of them below, but I wanted to talk about this a little bit. I know I've talked about, evil campaigns a few times. I don't know if I ever did a video specifically on it, but I figured even if I had, what the heck? It's kind of fun to talk about something and realize I talked about it before and see, like, has my opinion changed? So I didn't go back and watch anything. I just figured I'd kind of wing this. So, here, to me, there's a few different ways to approach this, really. What I don't want, and what often, like, when people decide, we're going to play an evil campaign, what tends to happen is, the players create characters and run around like some kind of murderous sociopaths. And that's just not fun. I guess it can be fun for a minute. That's murder hobos on steroids. But that's not really what I'm looking for. In my experience, I wrote some little notes here and there as I was I was on the exercise bike and dictating notes to myself in my phone. What happens a lot of times is, at least in my experience, is that, we don't plan as, a player or as a group for a game to become like evil. It just sort of organically happens that the characters that, as the players discover who their characters are, they start to behave in ways that are less good, I suppose would be the best way to say it. Often, to me, a lot of times it's not about the characters being overtly evil. And, it's not the Snidely Whiplash, mustachio twirling bad guy out to take over the world or do evil deeds. It's the idea that the characters are more selfish or self-interested and more, I guess, aggressively pragmatic. It might be a nice euphemistic way to call how they approach life. And so, like, by hook or by crook, the game turns into somewhat of a, you call it like an evil campaign. Jeffrey MacArthur gave a great example of like something like The Black Company, where, all of these guys are willing to do rather nasty and brutal stuff. But they have a fierce loyalty towards each other. And yeah, if you look at them from the outside, yeah, they're not a nice bunch of people. However, they still have their own morality and there's their own reasons for doing things. I looked at it, it's probably an imperfect analogy as well, but you look at somebody like Han Solo. Okay, maybe he's not overtly evil, but he's not the nicest guy in the entire world. He doesn't have a lot of scruples, especially when you first meet him. And man, I feel bad because I'm forgetting Jane's last name, and somebody will let me know what Jane's last name is. I can't believe I forgot that. But from Firefly, Jane is kind of a mercenary. He's not the nicest guy. However, what I find happens, to me, what is most interesting in those games, it doesn't always happen, is when you get a bunch of characters that the players have created or that just kind of organically emerge, who are more or less, arguably evil in some way, shape, or form. And I'm talking about any game system. It's not like, limited to one particular game or system. You can play as just about any game, unless the game specifically says, thou shalt not play characters unless they are, objectively good and do, these good things, whatever. What I find the most interesting, getting back to my train of thought, was when you've got these characters that are, mercenaries or, just pragmatic, however they're navigating life in that game. And as a result of play, not because it's intentionally thrown their way, they start having to make some moral choices. They come across like novel or interesting or tense or unusual situations where they start to have to make choices. Did we do the right thing here? What would the right thing to be? just because you're playing a selfish character doesn't mean, the guy doesn't stop and then, save a bunch of kittens from drowning. I'm going overboard here. Or decide, well, we need to save this village. This is not okay with what's happening here. This group of people. And that to me is a lot more interesting than the psychotic, murderous sociopaths running around the countryside or space or wherever else you are. Or the guy, with the grand machinations of how he's going to take over the world. I like playing scoundrels. I think I even put a note in here somewhere on things I'd like to talk about sometime. Going back and talking a little bit more about playing a scoundrel versus playing a hero. And to me, that's a lot of times what an evil, not even evil, I think that's the wrong term. Maybe sometimes. Sometimes it fits, if the shoe fits. And I've certainly played characters where we were objectively kind of not nice guys. Those can be very, very interesting campaigns. They don't have to be these, terrible people doing terrible things. Jeffrey also made a great point about the idea that, it depends. Like when you're fighting something or going up against something that's more evil than you are, whether you're trying to get one over on it or whatever, then evil there's levels of evil. How evil are you compared to Cthulhu or whatever it was? I forget the example he threw in there. Every once in a while, the most selfish guy does something good. Even Stanley Tweedle occasionally would do something that was good, or go up against a greater evil, usually cowering in the background, but that would happen. So that's my biggest take on. I'm just seeing if I jotted down anything else really, really clever, because I always think of really clever stuff here. I think that's about it, really. That's where I find an evil campaign, if you can even call it that, to be more fun. People, I think, really, when it comes down to, as James Raggi said somewhere in Lamentations of the Flame Princess, in his world, most people are neutral. Very few people, are what he would call in that game, like, chaotic or lawful. Most people are neutral. Most people are kind of out for themselves. They're not terrible people, and they're not like the biggest altruists in the entire world. Sometimes I think maybe you'd call it a neutral campaign, where we're not crusaders. We're just self-interested. How about that?